Welcome to the Rankled Engineer. Today we're talking about glass. I hate glass. I do not like cutting it. It is a pain in the butt. It just does not work for me very well. Yes, I have a glass cutter, and it kind of works. What I don't like about it is it doesn't work consistently. That's just the way glass seems to run for me. So I made some mirrors. You can see there's a nice little crack in there. Made mirrors a few months ago, and I silicone around, dropped the glass in, used some really light spring clamps, or what I thought were light spring clamps, and when I came back, the glass had cracked in both frames. And obviously this one's an octagon, the other one's a hexagon. Not really standard pieces of mirror that I can just go buy. So I'm hoping to remedy it and recreate these mirrors and not have them crack this time. And I've cut glass before on my tile saw, and it works pretty well for small pieces of glass. It doesn't work so well for large pieces of glass. And you still get a rough edge, and it depends on the type of glass. This is one that first one I cut out on the tile saw, and I got it all the way around, and then as I was doing the last piece, it snapped in an unfavorable position. So I'm trying to avoid this problem, and then also cutting with the glass cutter. Sometimes it breaks all the way through, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it wanders. I can't seem to get the knack for the glass cutter. What worked really well when I was putting these together is I would use the glass scorer and snap off the main pieces. Before I would do that, it's usually the start and stops that tend to give me the problem with the glass cutter, is I would work it with a Dremel cutter and just kind of nip at the edges to make sure that those would break, and that seemed to work okay. But there's still that moment when you're breaking the glass that you're like, crap, is this going to work or not? Because I don't want to waste time. So I started looking around at some options, and I want to try out some of these today, and I kind of want to progressively go through them because some of them are ridiculously expensive and some of them are reasonably priced. And so I'll probably start with the angle grinder because I love my angle grinder. I'm going to go ahead and see if this is too aggressive or not, because I can easily see this just shattering the glass. So I'm going to throw that in my battery powered angle grinder and see if I can't control it well enough to cut a decent line. And my plan is to use this and this piece as a test. Then I've got a bunch of these carbide cutters that are like double helixed, so that they supposedly help keep the cutter centered and cut cleanly. And I've seen plenty of videos where these are used to cut into Coke bottles and things. I'm probably just going to try the RotoZip one. I think it looks like the best. The Dremel, these two Dremels don't have as large of a shank on them. So I guess that means you would cut less, but I'm not too worried about loss of material. So I'm hoping I can return those. And then the last one I'll try if I need to, if neither of these works, is this little Dremel diamond cutoff wheel. This is the most expensive solution. And it's so small, I feel like it will take forever to cut a line in glass. If I was doing something small, this might make sense. It's diamond impregnated like this blade is, but I think having the larger wheel will hopefully allow me to crank through it faster. I probably will apply water with these two options if we get that far, but I don't think I'm going to try and apply water with the angle grinder. So there we go. We'll see if they work. Alright, well I know it didn't look pretty. I like the angle grinder better. It seemed to be more controllable, more predictable. Um, you know, it's not a clean edge, but in a picture frame or in a mirror frame it's going to look fine. Looking at the helical cutter, I mean it's a much finer edge, it just takes forever to work. I found that it would, if you just held it, it would just spin. It wasn't biting. You have to actually oscillate it to get it to really dig in there and move. And so I think cleaning up edges, that's the way to go. Truly, the way to go is to learn how to use this thing right. It doesn't work for me. So I thought I'd do something fun. I just went and convinced the wife to drink this root beer so that I could try both the angle grinder and the helical cutter to see what it does. That is some really thick glass, but it did cut a hole through it. Probably should be wearing gloves. I mean, that's cutting like an angle grinder. Yeah, that's the winner right there. I mean, that cuts the way I want it to cut. There you have it. I hope that's helpful. Comment if you want and tell me how horrible I am at cutting glass. I'm more than willing to learn and take those steps. I'd love to have somebody teach me how to use one of these. It just has not worked out, regardless of the videos that I watch. So thanks for joining the Rankled Engineer on glass cutting. Now I gotta get this picture frame done. So wait, we're not quite done yet. I did go ahead and finish the new mirrors, and I took some video of that, and I learned some things from doing more cutting with the angle grinder. First, a straight edge is critical to help keep a clean line and maintain the straight line, because it wants to wander like an angle grinder tends to do. I found for cutting thinner glass, like the bottle, it made sense to drag the blade across and cut the full thickness of the glass all at once. With the thicker glass, that did not work as well. It tended to chip out the corner of the glass cut and leave a worse surface than would be desirable. But cutting in several passes, waiting for the glass to naturally break, that resulted in a relatively clean cut. And then I was able to cut any remaining jagged edges or protrusions in the cut by cutting the full thickness of the glass all at once. And here are some close-ups in slow motion of the cutter in action, and you take just a little each time until it finally snaps and breaks. I did also find cutting a little more at each end helped the breaks be cleaner. I did not have a problem shattering the glass when both sides were relatively thick, and of course when you're cutting glass you're spraying silica dust all over the place, so some kind of mask that will filter the particulate should be worn when cutting glass. Using this method, we can get a relatively straight line and a clean cut. The only issue is that it does chip out a little bit on the corners of the glass. So as I said before, this is not something that should be used for a finished edge. It needs to sit in some kind of picture frame, and a final nibbing off of the little pieces that remain once the glass breaks is all it takes to finish the edge. Again, thanks for joining the Rankled Engineer.